Okay. Tell me how you been.
So, I definitely hit up on all sorts of stuff. When I kind of went into that space of the childhood and whatnot, I really remembered, actually, yet another thing before when I was having anxiety attacks. I had transitioned my oldest to school, and I attached a lot of my happiness and just I didn't get closure. I don't think I've had any closure on that whole thing. And then, so there's like sort of maybe a mini empty nest thing going on. And also, I realized how fearful I am because I sort of, and he's such a beautiful heart. Like, he's just such a beautiful person. And I like protected that. And I didn't, because I didn't know how to really get that, sense of immunity from other people's reactions. I don't think, like, I'm nervous, and it's like he's leaving the nest, and I'm like in the nest going, it's not safe out there.
Then because you're projecting your insecurity onto him as if he's just as weak as you, because you don't have a sense of what strength feels like. So you're projecting weakness onto your children, and the sucky part about it is when you do that, you're teaching them they're weak.
Yeah, and I feel like in a way, and I'm sure I haven't completely, but you know how you like try to not project that, so then, you know.
Yeah, but you do it through extreme controlling behavior. So you don't necessarily have to say that, but your actions around being isolation, controlling, fearful of the outside world, how can you not communicate something that how can you communicate something that you don't feel intrinsically?
Right. And right now he's going to, like, we had done Waldorf homeschooling. I don't know. Have you heard of Waldorf homeschooling? Okay. So anyway, there's a Waldorf private school here. So he was transitioning. So he's actually going to a private school that's not like a full-on public school environment at this moment. So so right now he's still in like a pretty nice space. So, and we haven't necessarily hit that point where this is sort of in the future a little bit still, as far as him going to a public school. But yeah, so I realized that a lot of
tell me how old he is.
Was just, he is 13. He's in the 7th grade.
Got it.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's understandable because you're insecure and you're projecting that insecurity onto your son. Because you don't have a sense of capacity. You don't know how to discern his capacity because you don't have any sense of your own. Right?
Right.
Except for under controlled environments.
Yeah, and then the whole, like, it was so special to homeschool him. Like, I just really enjoyed those sort of the childhood years from that, like, kind of 8 to 12-year-old awesomeness of boys. That was awesome. And so and then the other thing was that I realized that I don't say I realized, but my husband, my ex-husband, and my 2 little children all have, like, they're all hoped and want for us to homeschool. They like it. They, you know, so I'm not sure if a lot of the reason I went into homeschooling was because of my you know, the one that's now going off. So it'd almost be like a renewal of my sort of commitment at this point to, like, my next son. He's 8 now, so he's kind of getting into that super fun age. And not that it's all fun, but it's kind of fun when they really start to have all these interests in bugs and all these kind of other things they do, salamanders and lizards and things. But anyway, so I'm not even sure. I know that when for homeschooling, there's a lot of judgmental moms, of course, and so
You mean, hold on a second. Define what you mean by that. Are they judging the fact that you homeschool, or are there people in homeschooling that are judgmental of the schooling systems?
Well, actually, it's funny. Well, they are judgmental of the school system. Okay. But the other thing that's funny, too, like my best homeschooling years was I had found this certain style of homeschool, and I was just having a blast with the kids. Like, we were doing great. And then I found another mom who was doing the same style as me. And so we became friends, and she would literally tell me I'm doing things wrong. That's not good enough. And I would listen to her. I'm like, yeah, you're right, I suck. I'm like, oh, God. And so I went through years of always then being like, well, I'm not doing good enough. I homeschooled for 7 years, and my son's doing, he actually, I'm pretty proud. He did a decent, good job with him.
So you got to really question her, number one, her motives. Her the integrity behind what she's doing, what she suffers from.
Yeah. Well, I had kind of looked at her because even though I've always been like kind of clean cut or whatever, but she does the radical hair and the tattoos, and she was just like that, kind of. And I really admired her strength, so I guess I kind of gave a lot of credence to.
That's funny. It's funny.
Her, and that's fine, but.
Well, you're just assuming she must know. She must know. She must really know what she's doing.
Yeah, because I looked at her as almost like more stronger personality, but I see like does the whole sin supremacy, the whole thing. Like, there's a lot of supremacy, which I didn't relate until after we started talking and that.
Yeah. You know what really sucks about it, though, is, you can look at this person and say she has good integrity with what she thinks she's doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's got good integrity with what she thinks she's doing. She really believes in her heart she's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
Yeah, it's sweet. Yeah. It's sweet. It's loving within it. But ultimately, what she's not aware of yet is what she's teaching her children is that they are horribly sucky people.
Yeah, and she will flip out if, like, they don't watch media, they don't, she's got...
You get my point. So you get it. So basically, she's teaching them they can't handle reality, they are not capable of reality. So she's inherently teaching them that they are completely worthless people who cannot handle anything. So that's what she doesn't know. Because her fear is basically telling the kids, you are weak and incapable and cannot handle anything. Which is why we have to have such rigid rules, rigid restrictions, because you're inherently a horrible person. She doesn't say that consciously.
Yeah, but I can kind of see, I can see that almost immediately, because she has a son who's really outgoing personality, and that just...
It makes her nervous.
For her is like a big problem.
Well, you see what I'm saying? Because all she fears, and what she's projecting again, is her insecurity with her reality. This is why I have a lot of empathy in that position, because the effort is huge. Think of all of the work involved in what that woman is doing. It's insane. It's freaking insane.
It's more than me.
It's not okay. And I feel in this, and it's really sad. It's a sad situation because she's a slave to her pride, slave to her criticism of others. And that's the other thing. The way she talks, more than likely, is highly critical. And what she doesn't understand is she is telling her kids they cannot be real. Because real people are bad people. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So that was just, in general, also, in New Orleans, the homeschool, the regular school system here is very much not truly like segregated. It's still where it's almost developed into if you have enough money, you go to a private school, and there's no money put into the public school system here. Mm-hmm. So, and then the private school kids I went to private school, and I know there was like that. It's just an entitlement. There's just a lot of things that I just kind of didn't like. So then it also.
Well, you're in the South. I mean, that's the Southern culture. It is.
Yeah.
Totally segregated.
Supremacy stuff going on. So, but with moving to Florida, I don't know. I mean, if that's something I guess right now, like if I did think about homeschooling, I would know that I would have to heal my own issues, and so that I can do it in a different way and not be so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And let it free flow more, because part of the thing that I did in my own insecurity, and that whole security blanket thing you talked about, I totally get. I have like a beautiful library of resources, but I collect more than I need of resources. And part of that is just, I don't know. Yeah, just a fantasy of all these things I can do with the kids, and like I didn't have enough already. So
what you need to be aware of is, what are you expecting? What do you expect out of your kids?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is, I think it wasn't. I was happy. Like I think I was more critical of myself. And also, one of the things that is very obvious with homeschooling kids is they're different. So then you find what's interesting, the way that they need to be taught.
Yeah. Yes. And
your own ideas of how things are going to go.
Okay. So I want to go back to my question. So what are you expecting out of your kids?
I just want them to grow up to be happy and people who are surrounded by people who treat them kindly. I want them to do whatever, actually, I really almost just nothing. I could almost just say, I just want them to be happy.
I think it's relevant, though, what you were saying. I think what you were just saying, which is, I want them to be treated kindly.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of? Or what are you afraid of? So if they get into the real world, which is not kind.
Right.
The real world is real. It's not fake. It's not isolated.
In that case, I want them to have an immunity to it. Like, I want them to...
How do you do that?
Well, I need to definitely develop an immunity.
Okay.
So that I can...
How do you do that?
Go out in public and listen to people and just be like...
let people have opinions. Exactly. You expose yourself.
Yeah.
And you live in it. You be in it. You live in it. You stay in reality. You integrate in it. And that's how you build an immunity. You don't build an immunity by separating yourself from it and then judging it. Right. That is narcissism at its best.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm superior to that. And what's wrong with someone actually criticizing you?
Yeah. If anything, it's just their own thing.
Yeah. It's just someone projecting their thoughts onto you. And you know what? If you don't really give a shit, why is it a big deal?
Right.
So the problem, so I do think it's relevant that you question what you think you're doing and why, and what you think you'll get out of it. If you can get yourself, I am for and against and everything in between homeschool and public school. I don't give a shit. Because you got to know your kids, and you got to know, but you really need to know what your intention is. If you want your kids to be integrated into reality and to have a sustainability within themselves and to be adaptable human beings, you know what? Why can't you do a blend of both like you're kind of doing with your oldest son? Like you said, the benefit of being at home with your kids, it's wonderful. You're interacting with them. It's a beautiful thing. At some point, they have to get into reality. They have to. You cannot keep them from the truth of...
I do find that that 12-year-old, that's definitely the point where that's necessary.
For him?
But, like, for example, my 8-year-old, he really loves, like, right now he's into, like, the ant farms, you know, so we can, like, study ants or different things regarding, and kind of, like, tailor, and he's really big on, you know, his own expressing things the way he likes to as well, which I just don't, I don't know. So anyway, I'm not sure if, I do feel like, definitely by a certain age they do, like, you know, I had to let Nathan, I'll just go, you know, it was time for him to do that.
Well, yeah, and they need to do it so that they can develop a better sense of themselves.
Yeah.
How do you get a sense of yourself when you're never really exposed to people who are different?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think your goal, again, if we look at what's your goal, it sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds awesome. You're doing a good job. Well, and you know what? You're doing the best job you can with what you're aware of. And you know what? You don't know until it unfolds how it ends up working. And you're going to have, and you got to forgive yourself for sucking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sucking right now. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
My kids have been in public school since the beginning. And, you know, I have just assumed and trusted that the teachers that meet with them can get a sense of my kids and their group of 22 other kids. You know, that they get a sense of my children. My children will adapt. You know, there's a combination of the two, and they've been doing it ever since. So,
yeah.
I don't know. It is what it is. The kids are resilient, you know. And so, in the end, our goals are the same.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing.
I think I was just interested in education. I actually taught before being a homeschool mom, so I had like some interest in how children learn or what, you know, just as an experiment for myself to see the interaction. So it was something that.
So do you feel like your anxiety around that, like with that friend that was kind of a radical zealot of it?
Right.
Did it second guess what you were doing? Did it make you second guess if you've made a mistake or if you're doing it wrong or you're not good enough or you're, you know?
Yeah, I really started to feel like I wasn't good enough. So.
And then how does that? So if you're not good enough, how does that translate into your children?
Yeah.
You see that? It's not just I'm not good enough. It's and then my children won't be prepared for reality.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if I were to just tell you that's true?
Yeah, and she, interestingly enough, she had no problem, you know, criticizing people's children. She just, well, he doesn't really do this, or he doesn't. I'm like, oh my.
She certainly believes that she knows what's the right way.
Yeah. So, and she puts a lot of work into her integrity too. She's like she's probably the most zealot person I met, and because she was the one person kind of who is really doing this particular style, we had spent a lot of time together doing all sorts of fun things. But
do you think that
I was listening to her opinion on this.
Well, that sounds really toxic. Do you think that her toxic kind of poisonous in a way of being might have impacted your psyche a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I absolutely enjoyed like homeschooling more before.
Yeah, it's toxic. Yeah, that type of narcissism is terribly toxic. She had to have been miserable.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it, but she totally is miserable.
Yeah.
Poor thing. Can you imagine what's going to happen when one of her kids has an addiction?
Right.
I feel sorry for her.
And
that's what's going to happen.
Oh, gosh.
Or they'll commit suicide, you know.
Coming to her because she just,
It's just sad.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, and who are we to say that, really? It'll happen how it's going to happen. But if you can see how maybe when you're around that type of environment, how that would create even more pressure inside of yourself. being that you're not necessarily living freely. You are, but you're not.
I really was, it made me just question, and I would buy more resources. Like, I was always,
keeping up with the Joneses.
Turning into a purchasing not addiction, but
insecurity.
Some new thing,
it's like dieting.
This science textbook. No, I probably want this one too. And they end up with 10 science textbooks.
Yeah, that's like hoarding diets. Like I'm a dieter who constantly research dieting.
Yeah,
I have all these dieting books.
I know every homeschool, and homeschooling is like that because there's there's so many different ideologies. It's the same thing. It's like all these ideologies. Then you try them all, just like you try every diet.
That's why I asked the question. Yeah, that's why I asked the question of what's your goal? Like, what do you think you're going to get out of it? What's the point?
Yeah.
What do you think you're going to get?
Yeah. If anything, it's really just, seeing the kids enjoy getting to kind of experience and be in that place while they learn, and kind of that's the only thing I really have to take away from it all. All the rest is a massive headache.
Right. But, well, in the end, when my son and your son are in the same place, they're both probably going to be the same.
Exactly. Oh yeah, for sure. I wouldn't doubt it. And really, one of the biggest things I was trying to avoid was the private school option, because I don't like how, kids that are super entitled, and might be because I grew up in a private school option, and...
Well, it's not just entitlement, it's isolation from reality once again.
Right.
It's like you're isolated from reality. That's really what that is.
Yeah.
It's just a different way to isolate from reality.
Yeah, that was the way.
Does that make sense?
Parents did it for me, and that actually was really stinky for me, because when I got to college, so very good for me. The first time I had experienced the real world.
Right?
Not
you
good.
were just, me neither, and I was essentially raised in a very tight, controlled, they were very loving. I grew up in a very loving environment, but it was very controlled, and it was very rural, tiny classes. And when I went into reality, which wasn't even that big of a shift, but it was a big shift in relation to that, it blew up in my face. I was like a child with no discernment. I didn't know how to function in reality. I didn't know how to discern anything. I'd just been so isolated in this nice, cute little rural environment that when I went to Boise, Idaho, of all places, which is not that big, I was just easy to push around and to manipulate, and I didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah, I was definitely too easy to push around. It just, I guess it was peer pressure, but it just...
Yeah, but it's also you wanting to be liked. There's two sides, right? Because we could say... Not everybody in that environment ended up with mental illness from what I grew up in. So what was it in me that was promoted it? Well, it was also this need to want to feel accepted, which makes you vulnerable too. It's not just being isolated from reality. It's this burning desire to be accepted and liked by your peers and by groups of friends. And oh my gosh, there's a group. I just want them to like me. So what do they believe in? I'll just believe what they believe.
Yeah.
Because you want to become like this group of people that you just, because I hadn't been exposed to differences.
And it's interesting because I started to understand when you were talking about building a persona versus finding what's really unique to you, and especially with the art stuff. There's so much, so you have to kind of figure out your style, and I've never done that yet. And so I was sort of realizing that that's really the way that I need to go, is to, just stay, find me, who I am.
Well, just, it's not even fun. I'm going to change your words. I'm just going to...
Okay.
It's not about finding. It's just allowing it to be.
Yeah.
Okay, because when you say finding, that means you're
Right.
still going from in out versus just allowing or existing. Just exist in what is.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't unique to you. Nothing is really unique to you.
Right, that's true.
Because that's somewhat of another way to create separation between you and someone else, and disconnection, and a way to say, well, I'm this way, you're that way. So that's ultimately the problem. So that's a symptom of the problem. That's called a state of being in duality. This or that, me or you. So it's sometimes people talk about there is the me, that is the lowercase me. That's the concept of me. That's the ego me. That's the I'm different than you me. And then there is the uppercase me, which is ultimately what is. It's like consciousness. It's like what is real in the universe and where you fit in it. There's no aspect of lowercase me. That is a figment. That is a concept, right? So how we conceive ourselves. So when you say I have to find myself, you're saying I need to conceive it. Nope. What we're doing is just being what it is. So you don't have to create the edges and boundaries and concepts. Right? So you can describe what it feels like. I describe the feeling, and it's hard to even find words to describe, but in reality, I am nothing. I'm just a witness. I'm just participating.
Yeah.
Involuntarily.
Yeah.
But also voluntarily, because I do have some free agency here around expressing and experiencing a life that I'm creating. But I'm not creating it. I'm also witnessing and just going with the flow, right? So there's agency in the fact that I'm going to write a book. Okay. Right? Your agency, and I want to homeschool my kids. Okay. Right? You're creating an piece of artwork, and how are you doing that? Well, you're just doing what's right with your heart. Right? You're doing what you think is right in your heart, right? And it can change. It can change.
Yeah.
But anyway,
because I started wondering, I was like, well, do I feel like I have to go back to work or am I actually running away from homeschool at this point because I was not having closure, I'm not moving through issues, I'm coming up against belief patterns that are kicking me in the butt, and then
I think you should.
Am I really wanting to move on? And I also just feel like as I go through all these sessions, like tired, just.
Yeah, you're okay. So tell me this: if you could, and be very honest, very, very honest, if given a do-over, is homeschooling something you would say yes? I'm going to do it again.
I actually would. I would say yes. I would definitely give up the junk that I just projected
awesome
the experience, but
So getting rid of the junk, how does that feel?
It feels good. I definitely can see how I just I wore myself out. We lived in a house that needed renovations. I literally hung sheetrock. I'm installing fences and gardens. We get a flood. There were so many things where I just sort of collapsed. And so part of me attaches, homeschooling in the past for me was exhausting, but it wasn't actually just the homeschool. It was everything that was going on. There was a lot of changes going on, but
So if you
So as I have to dissect which part was just things in the past that
you wouldn't hold on to.
They're done with. I'll just move on.
Yeah, you would never do it again. Given the opportunity, I would never do that again.
I would never renovate a house again. I
Okay.
would never choose to.
You would hire it out.
That needs renovation. That was not good.
Okay. So lesson learned.
But, that I would never do again. Ever.
That's got to feel good to know that given the opportunity to hire it out, or you wouldn't do it again. Even though you know how to do it. It's like, I don't even care. It's not your thing. It didn't bring you joy.
It's definitely not with me. It's just...
Okay, is that over?
So, it is over. The house is halfway renovated, but I'm not doing anything. It flooded. It's got some repairs, but one of the reasons we actually had moved to Florida, we have a second place basically, is because my older son's dad lives there. And I just felt like I needed more assistance with the kids, more interactivity. Obviously my 8-year-old really wants, his dad time, and my husband really wants to relocate to that area. So that was kind of, part of why I even ended up here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then my husband does have an older son who's in high school, and so we would need to have basically 2 homes for a little while, which is, I think, part of his idea, besides wanting to be part of homeschooling, for our youngest, it would be more convenient as well. But I'm definitely not interested in renovating this house. It's just going to have to be sold as it is whenever it's time to sell it. But we do have 4. We have 4 boys total. So.
I see. So what you're trying to do is find out why this became so
much that I felt
repellent.
like I was just so
you're gonna lose your shit. Yeah, it was it was repelling. It was just I'm getting the sense of that right now. Like you're falling apart. It was not good. Not good.
Yeah, I was. There
well,
so
how
many
much shit are you
things
doing that you don't want to do? How much stuff are you doing you don't want to do? That you're just feel trapped. You're feeling trapped.
That's a good question.
The feeling is trapped, right?
Yeah, I definitely really felt trapped, and I just assumed and I also stopped doing anything really for myself like I used to do.
Well, yeah. Hold on a second.
I stopped doing all of
Pause. All of that has to stop when you're in a state of survival mode.
Right. So
your headspace,
a serious state of survival, and
and those things are appropriate when you're feeling up, when you can breathe, when you have extra energy, when you're not under stress, when you're not in survival, when you're not functioning properly. Those activities, and I think this is an important conversation to have. When you, because a lot of people think, well, I let those go and therefore I'm miserable. Well, you know what? You might want to find out why you let them go, because chances are you were in a lower state of survival that didn't accommodate for that type of luxury, if you want to call it that. The luxury of being able to go dancing.
Yeah.
That's a luxury.
Yeah.
For people who are in survival mode. That'd be like, when I've been in, the different times I've been in a survival state of mind, one was when I had the gym and it was in 2008, 2009, and a bunch of my trainers' business went away. And I was working more and more and more as a trainer, and I was also doing all this stuff with HCG, and I was working so much, but I wasn't making any money at all, and I couldn't pay for food. I stopped. You can't socialize. You can't. Your brain basically says you have to fix these things.
You're coming in and out a tiny bit.
Okay, so once you fix those things, right, your brain says you can't relax.
Actually, I do know what happened, because when we first all got together, so we had the pregnancy, we were in love, and we're going to blend of family. You know, and he was my fiance at the time. He, like, we weren't making as much money, and we had, like, a house thing going on, and then the homeschool, and he also was almost, I don't want to say a workaholic, but he was almost like in a haze himself of his own world. And so the kids our older kids weren't blending that well. His son was super protective and not wanting to blend. And so it was like we hunkered down and we didn't have like the same resources financially to really do much. And so we lived for a while in a house that needed renovation and doing it all ourselves, and he's in his own survival mode, and I don't even really know how we made it, because we were definitely ships passing through the night, and that was really tough. So
how did you cope?
I started doing a meditation class it's called like Mastering Alchemy, and it was actually, I learned a lot of the things that you talk about, but I did it in sort of a different way. So then when I heard you say it, it sounded familiar, but and besides that, I think I wasn't, I know, I was physically doing stuff in the house constantly. Like I was doing that perfectionistic.
Got it. See, like, now you caught it. You caught it. Now you're hitting it. Now you're hitting it. This is what you're coping with, because you're trying to expend, like get something done. You're trying to solve it, right? You're trying to make it better.
Yes.
That's how our brains become like, and it's incredible. It's incredible to have this and to know what it is. But when you're in survival mode, when your life is in threat, when your tribe is not functioning well, you're moving, what you are doing is trying to survive, okay? And your brain goes into tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Focus, and you're pinpointing the tunnel focus on what you believe will make it better.
Right. Yeah. When
my mom was dying and I went home, she had brain cancer, and I went home, and it was me and my sister, Jenny. We volunteered to be there for the last 2 months of her life to help her and to help my dad and to basically be there as she died and be there for her when she died. And what I did is I became very everyday focused on her yard, because she was a master gardener.
Oh, okay.
And it had, over the course of the time, because of her brain damage from the brain surgery and the cancer growing, she couldn't process step 1, step 2, step 3. So she'd have a desire to do the pruning, but she couldn't actually go into how to do it. So we'd have her sit outside. She'd have a desire, we need to prune that, and we would do that for her, right?
Yeah, I can see what that was like.
It was so loving. It was like, I'll do anything for her to make her life better. And anyway, so as she was dying, the way that I honed I became very tunnel focused on doing the edging and getting her beautiful yard to be what she wanted it to be. And that was like my way of still connecting to her psychologically as she was starting to exit this life, you know?
Yeah.
And I look back at it, and it's just amazing to me. Because I'm like, that was survival mode working so beautifully. It was so wonderful.
Yeah. My grandmother passed not that long ago, and I remember, like, my aunts and my mom, like that, and just the way everything kind of...
Yep, you're hovering around like little bees.
Tunnels down,
Anyways, and it's beautiful to be a part of that and to witness it and to be okay with it. You know, I'm clearly coping with yard work. But anyway, so you, in that So the reason why I bring that up is because you might still be functioning in those, that you might be fatiguing from what you've been trying to cope with. Because over time, you might get gratification out of it unconsciously, not knowing why, right? So it feels safe. It feels like I'm doing something. And if you take pride in that, now you're screwed.
Yeah, I almost just started to feel, because I was just at home all the time working, like almost like a retired person or something. Like I'm just home too much, but there was so much to do at home because of the
so you're held hostage.
Homeschool. It's like everything became work at home to do,
and it's never ending.
I adapted to that, but I also, that part. I mean, I watched like when we had a flood, and then that was it for me with that. I'm like, I couldn't even think of another, nothing. I'm not doing anything. I can't emotionally do another thing.
Okay, so tell me if you could, obviously you would remove the renovation.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you get rid of that, what would it feel like?
If I had a home where I could set up a rhythm, I love setting up rhythm. I love having a rhythm to the day with the kids.
Yeah.
I find kids do really well with rhythm. So to me, if I get all of that, a space, a home, a functioning home, and can do that, would be a lot of fun. That's fun.
You can handle that, and it wouldn't feel overwhelming. I want you to go into that space and tell me, would you be able to go out and do personal things for yourself? Like, would the energy to go dancing come back?
Yeah. I mean, I would think I would. So I know right now I feel like I'm more in just like as I'm doing like a massive exhale, I almost like I don't know. Yeah. Right now I literally spend a lot of my time just doing my little art or thinking about things, doing the things I need to do, but
okay, so let's just imagine you're going to go back. How does that feel right now?
Right now, I feel like I would need for the dads to be more involved. I had taken on for myself, everything almost, and they needed to kind of step in more and not just be the fun guys. Or even if they were, that they, like my husband, he could use a little more free time or time with the family instead of just working. That would be something that would be important. So,
what needs to be removed?
Well, I think a lot of what needs to be removed is just my issues with, I don't know, I would distance myself from that friendship that I've developed with a person who's pretty toxic.
So tell me what that's going to be like. How are you going to do that?
Well, I'm actually considering, we really like the Florida area, so I'm thinking that will be my home base from now on, and see what the community's like there, and just kind of see, like my older kids, their dad and stepdad basically is there. So that could work. I haven't really looked into their whole scene yet. One of the interesting things about the New Orleans area is because of the religious, there's a lot of the religious private schools here, and that goes into the homeschool communities. So a lot of really nice homeschool groups, you have to be part of that religion. And that over time, as I left some of the religious things, ended up being a huge hit for me. because of the way things are set up in this particular city, which kind of is, I think, just a trickle down from the whole environment for education that we have in this city, which is a little bit unique. So I'd have to kind of look into it and see if that would be something. I did move almost purposely to one of the best school districts. I'm thinking, I'm done with homeschool and I'm going to...
How's that feel?
I guess I just would like to have time. Like, personally, I feel like I need time, but I'm not sure how much time. Like, is the next, having a summer, having some time, like, I may be fine with that. My little ones want to homeschool, and then I've got two dads who are excited about it, so I've sort of spread that whole thing that everybody's pretty excited about, and then, so...
Well, I know that I'm sure your ex-husband and your current husband are excited because they haven't done shit.
Yeah.
Just so that you know. So keep them out of it for now. I know they're definitely involved, but keep them out of it for now.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would do it for them.
No, I wouldn't do it for them.
Okay, keep them out of it right now, because you've mentioned their opinion about it multiple times, but they're not the ones doing anything.
Yeah.
So they might have some fucking fantasy about what they think you should be doing. And clearly it sucks. And clearly it's sucking. So just keep... I'm just trying to say, of course, yeah, they're great. But what if in the end you're like, you know what? We've got a great school district. These kids can integrate in reality. I'm still an engaged mother. It's not like, don't catastrophize it.
Yeah, no.
So with that said, if it means your mental health is better, to take a break and let your kids have a different experience.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of, and my husband's not, well, okay, so I know it's something else to think, but because we have sort of two home bases at the moment, if the kids are in school, then he feels like it would be a little more difficult, but I would like to at least see if they would enjoy school, and then if it's really, like, my girl's really feeling like he doesn't get to express himself or something and really wants to do homeschool, then at that point maybe I can.
Do they have friends?
Yeah, we've developed little friendships and things, but especially with the mom who like... I
know, I'm really concerned. I don't know if you might want to think about the toxic relationship. Let's talk about, getting your friends to have really more authentic friendships.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of think it's a good idea for you guys to have a break. I'm just listening to you, and I'm like, holy shit. She needs a break.
I need a big break.
I know.
That's why I'm wondering if, like, a summer, like, I almost feel like I need...
Well, look at...
a year or two?
Well, I don't think... Why even judge that? You need to look at the truth of how has this impacted you. You might have had an idea of what you thought it was going to be, and in reality, you're in the circumstance, you're very, very sensitive to environmental pressures. So you couldn't handle it when there's movement, when life happens. All of a sudden, you psychologically, because it requires so much of you.
Yeah, because it really, when you're the one whose pressure is like, oh, your child's entire educational experience is up for you to design. That is so much pressure. Even for someone who likes intellectual and is interested in education, I was like, oh.
Yeah, don't forget, you're also now in charge of finding them a way to integrate into reality, because you're taking them out of reality. So you have to add that to it, and you have to give them the opportunity to see the real world with friendships and how to figure out how to relate to people and to have compassion for others and to actually, you see what I'm saying? And so I'll add to that something as normal as a home problem. That's freaking normal, okay?
Right.
Is it really the best thing to do if you cannot live in reality without mental health problems? Just keep that in mind. You can, because the other thing I'm hearing from you is, I could do it if I'm isolated from any type of conflict.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're hearing that.
Yeah, I think that what I noticed that I'm not doing is processing it through on like a heart level, so that when new changes happen, I've got baggage I hadn't processed from 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, and that's
I don't have that space to have the grace.
Well, no, here's the thing: if you haven't resolved certain issues, it is absolutely projecting into how you're living and why you're living and what your choices are.
Right.
So, for example, you started noticing the anxiety is with the idea, that my son is transitioning into public school. And there's anxiety there. Well, that's a sign right there that you're coping with it. There's something there's something survival oriented that is based around fear, because the anxiety that's manifesting when you're letting it go, that anxiety is a sign that this is a cave. Make sense? He's leaving the cave. There's anxiety.
Yeah.
He can't handle it. It's dangerous. Do you hear that? So you're supporting something that is actually a cage. You don't see it, however, because you're getting gratification out of it's an illusion, but it's a feeling of safety from it. So I'm safe here. I'm super controlled here.
We went into it because there's so many homeschool activities to choose from. There's so many things to do. It was more of just experience, and then it hit survival mode.
Okay.
With the pregnancy and the whole blending the family.
And your sensitivity to the friend who's got absolute narcissism and attached to the superiority of what she's doing and the inferiority of you would have to be okay with her completely thinking you're inferior piece of shit.
Yeah, I'm sure she probably already does. Pretty sure.
Right. You're ruining your children. How can you do that?
Yeah. That's pretty bad. So yeah, exactly.
I just one of the things that I did is I said, what would immediately give me relief? What would immediately give me relief? Immediately. That I'm doing, that I might be doing voluntarily. That if I let it go, it would be like the biggest weight off my shoulders.
Yeah, and the homeschooling, hands down, would be just such a massive weight.
Okay, right now. What does that tell you?
Yeah, I need the relief.
It's too much.
Basically.
This is way too much. You're in over your head.
Right.
And it's, you know what? Is it because you suck?
No.
Well, it might be. No. It might be. I'm not going to lie. Why does it matter? Why does it matter whether you can't do it? You're not insane enough for it. Either that or it's too much with the emotional pressure you're backing with it. So that's why I'm like, maybe you do.
a lot of emotional pressure for just the whole idea of the.
So in that.
Like the entire.
In that case.
Being on your weight and then.
In that case, are you a failure? Are you inferior? Yep. Do you see what you get my point? Is there something wrong with that?
No.
Can I tell you something? If I were to homeschool my kids, I would be horrible. Got way too much ADHD. I don't have the patience. As much as I love school, love it. I love studying. I love learning. I love curiosity. I have a huge passion for that. Do I necessarily have the patience? No, I don't.
Yeah.
So do I feel bad about that? Clearly I don't. You see see the difference? That's why I said, well, what if you suck at it? And that's where the pressure's coming from.
Part of it for me was I ended up in almost like a radical homeschool style where we're doing like super arts integrated storytelling. I was literally hand making puppets for stories in my spare time. I've
Oh, that's kind of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're doing, but I was like, we did a lot of handwork, a lot of like, cutting out our own wooden figures and different things and all this kind of stuff. It was very labor-intensive, so I held myself up to a standard that is pretty ridiculous, really, for a homeschooler. Like, if I was just gonna, I could have done workbooks, but no, I would not be.
Okay, so you get my point. You're getting my point. In relation to that, you suck. You get my point.
I could have done a regular homeschool style and been like the best, but I didn't. I had to push myself to this place where, at nighttime, I'm, just, yeah, I put.
Okay, so I'm gonna just say this.
Above and beyond with my idea of how fantastic.
I got it. So you suck. You suck.
Yeah.
So I have to ask the question. Are you okay with that? Is there something wrong with being sucky?
No, and really, I feel like coming from how much I was pushing myself, if I just loosen the pressure of myself, I'd probably have a fantastic time because I was holding myself to such high standards that I could easily have done it and it been maybe even a piece of cake or at least a lot easier. But because I had all of these fantasy ideas,
well, and fear of sucking, fear of being inadequate.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I keep on going there. It's like you're afraid to be inadequate. So what if you are inadequate? What if it's true? You are inadequate. You really aren't cut out.
Yeah.
So go there.
No, I can't have an artistic chalkboard drawing every week, all these. I did have some.
I need you to answer my question. Just focus on what I asked you.
Yeah.
I asked you.
I could do it if I did it in a normal way that most people.
Okay. Yeah, but that's inadequate. So let's just imagine. Just go where I'm guiding you, okay? Just you keep on avoiding what I'm trying to get you to look at.
Sorry.
Just fucking look at it. What if you actually aren't cut out for this? What if it's psychologically you're not equipped to homeschool? You're better off teaching in a school environment where you can shut it off at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just go there. Just open right now. Don't leave it. Keep on looking at it. Just open your eyes and go, what if that's true? What if it's true? What if it's true? Just look at it. Don't distract yourself. Breathe it into your lungs. I'm not telling you, just open yourself up to it.
Yeah, to that.
What if it's true? What if this whole fucking fantasy, homeschool bullshit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not saying it's all bullshit. I'm talking about the fantasy shit, okay?
Yeah, right, yeah.
I didn't go to preschool. I was at home with my mom. I turned out okay. After I came out of a suicidal depression. But anyways, so, I want you to just go into the truth of what if, in fact, you aren't equipped for what you're trying to accomplish. You're truly inadequate.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something wrong with that?
No, I would if I was someone who, I hear people say that all the time, I'm a teacher, but I could never teach my own kids, or things and I never think, oh, that makes you a terrible person. I don't think that.
No, I'm talking about how you perceive yourself. So go into yourself, not how you perceive others.
Yeah, I'm thinking of how I would treat someone else.
What if you are not good enough?
Yeah, and I can see I would feel disappointed in myself. So I have to own that I would feel disappointed.
Why? Because what if it's true?
I guess my ideas of just, the mama duck with the little baby ducks and the whole
fantasy bullshit that Disney made for you. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, so I can see how I'm attaching all these ideas to just how fabulous it could be,
But what if that fabulous it could be is not even realistic? It's like a painting in the sky that is one-dimensional.
Right.
So let's just go into reality. I'm going to take you back. What if you are, in fact, inadequate to, your capacity, and I want you to think of it from this point of view, too. Keep in mind the effort you've put into this and the dedication and the wanting, and it's clearly failing.
Yeah.
Now, what if what you're seeking requires more? What if it requires more than for you to have the ducks and the cute little mommy and the duckies? What if it requires more than what you've done?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I definitely pushed myself.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the question again. Just stay with me.
Yeah.
What if you are, in fact, inadequate? You're not, you're, in terms of that, you're inferior to the job at task at hand. What if that's the truth?
Well, in that case, I just want the kids to go to a school that I felt like would be a good school, and that's fine.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the question again. You skipped out. Come back in.
Okay.
What if you are, in fact, inadequate? How are you going to feel about that?
Well, it's fine. I don't have to be, the best at everything. So, that's obviously just not my forte.
So, what if you are inferior? If you are inadequate? What if that is true, if it's the truth, should you feel disappointed?
No, because I would have to see that sort of fantasy.
Well, what's the benefit of you seeing the truth? What's the benefit if that's the truth?
Of living a life that's, not too stressful.
Well, yeah, wow, you are free then. You're free to just do what you can do. Right. You don't have to do any better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, do you kind of see where I'm positioning you?
Yeah, just that place of grace.
Well, what's the truth? If what you're wanting requires insanity, maybe you might want to question what you're wanting. Because you're clearly not cut out for it. Because you're having signs of mental health problems. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And this may have a lot to do with this friend of yours who you've used as a banner of success.
Mm-hmm.
Or even what they're selling, this concept of what's being sold.
Yeah,
right?
The whole damn homeschool materials and how there's every cover is of moms enjoying their kid, reading to their kids, and I do that. I love reading to my kids.
Right, you don't need a cover to.
The thing is that was sold as this fantastic family experience, the ultimate family experience is homeschool.
So I have a question for you.
Coming from a family where I didn't feel like I got that maybe myself, and so recreating that, obviously.
Here we are. There's the underlying issue, dearie. You are a victim. You had such a terrible childhood, didn't you? So bad.
And I really didn't.
I know, but that little.
How my mindset was that
I have to improve
I wanted something more different or better for my kids.
Because yours was not better, and you want your kids to have something better. But in reality, the concept of what's better, how do you know what's better? What you had was pretty freaking good. So you're making what you had, and you're diminishing it, catastrophizing it into something not good enough, and then you're projecting that victim positionality into your children as if they're. I mean, are you afraid that they're going to think the same thing?
No, and I think I did into the images because I remember the very first time I even like Googled homeschooling and all the idyllic images, and I fell for that image. Like
yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with the image. You bought the symbolism.
Yeah, the symbolism.
It's like looking at the magazines and saying, "Oh my God, I want her abs." Oh, yes, life is so amazing when you're hot and boys want to fuck you.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing, but you're doing
I was doing the same thing, but it was like baking cookies based on the story of, and like we read a story and then we do this activity and then we, I don't know. I was like, I bought into this whole, like.
Well, there's nothing wrong with
it. It's going to be so special. And honestly, we did have a great time.
And then you're screaming and yelling at your kids to sit down, sit down. No, we're talking about the story.
And my 8-year-old is totally not that type. So then it's like you have to find things like every character had to be a dinosaur because he was like obsessed with dinosaurs. So if I was going to tell a story, I had to change all the characters into different types of dinosaurs.
Yeah, and see how you're placating to his need to be placated to?
Yeah.
Anyways, not thinking there might be long-term effects from that.
Yeah.
The entitlement you talked about?
Right.
Not thinking. What you're afraid of, you're creating. I know. This is the hard part about it because your integrity is good. You're just not seeing that it's coming from your own mental blocks,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think what you might want to do is just sit back and let's just erase it all and start over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you to take your kids and put them in public school. I'm just saying you might want to question the integrity and the truth of what you've been doing. One of the hardest things that I have ever done, ever, besides, willfully die, is question the religion I was raised in. Every part of me was in pain doing that because there was so much cognitive dissonance around don't look at it, deny it. This is, because you're positioned to worship this concept.
Right.
That it is, how could it be wrong? How could this be something that could have like a downside? We're talking about God and Jesus in this beautiful place called heaven, and it's kind and it's loving and there's this spirituality. Why would that be something I need to look at critically? Because I'm in this state of horrible suffering, and I had to come to a place where I had to admit whatever was going on sucked. If it was failing miserably, whatever I was doing was such a complete and utter failure because I was willing to just literally end it. To say that what I'm doing is the right thing to do is just straight pride. Because I'm not willing to face the failure of it and to admit what I'm doing is actually terrible.
Yeah. Well, I can see how, just with the whole homeschool, like I've even been going through and starting to even take collage elements sort of for my journaling because I've attached so much to this homeschool. So much. And I boxed up most of my stuff and moved it out because I couldn't even look at it because I love it so much. I had to get physical distance and even the things here. So I realized how much attached to this idea.
Now, what are you going to do when your kids don't want to homeschool anymore? When they're like, we're done.
Yeah, and that's the thing is then I still have a couple who are interested right now, but yeah, that's the thing is that empty nest ends up being magnified because you've devoted your entire life to
your identity.
Yes.
This has not to do with life. It has to do with your identity as a person. So that
Right.
your survival,
Yes.
your sense of survival and purpose. And so that's what we need. You need to get out of your decision. You cannot afford to use this. It's selfish and self-righteous, to be honest with you. It's not about your kids. That part you need to see. What I'm saying is, if it's about your kids, that's no big deal. But it's not. It's about you. So what you're describing is your problems. That you don't want them to leave because it's my needs need to be met. And that concept of that empty nest is really not about your kids. It's about your needs. This is called narcissistic supply.
Actually, it's very interesting because I realized that because my mother, to this day, clings so tightly to me and my two sisters. And I never wanted to do that with my kids. I was like, I'm going to let my children have a life. Let them fly. Let them do this. Like, I'm not going to repeat what my mom still to this day attempts to do.
Okay.
And
how are you doing?
I do realize I'm struggling with something that I sort of passed on in a little bit of a way. I have to, like, let that not do the same thing that I saw or
well, you're clearly doing it.
But I'm not.
Yeah, so you don't know exactly. You don't know. You may be judging your mother, but yet you're not sure what it is that was why she's so clingy, which is why you're finding yours clingy. And you're not.
It's just that fear, because she's also afraid of the world. She isolates. She does all that.
Yeah, she feels insecure.
My
but
grandmother was like that.
Yeah, but her mother, her identity as a mother gave her a sense of like some type of purpose, and she has no individual purpose.
Right.
Don't you agree if you have an individual sense of yourself and you are autonomous in who you are, okay, meaning it's independent in your sense, right? This goes back to me versus the uppercase me. But if you're aware that exists in you, and everybody has that existence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you are not your children. They are not you.
Well, and it's funny because I've always said, like, I want to travel, like, after my kids, because I was traveling a lot before I even had kids. So I always really enjoyed, like, that sort of thing. And so I just always envisioned that when it was time, I would definitely make that break. Mm-hmm. And
so what I was asking,
that's my thing.
Yeah. What I was asking was, how would your parenting be if you were autonomous?
It would be accepting, and I think too.
And you wouldn't be taking responsibility so much for some of the stuff that you might be taking responsibility for.
Yeah, and I think part of clinging to some aspects of happiness that I may have experienced with like homeschool and things is a bit of regret. Like maybe I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have. Like a little bit of I wish I would have been even more present than I was. But and then also just that whole savoring the moment thing. Like
yeah, but how do you do that? How do you do that when you're not savoring the moment? You're savoring this idea that you're chasing.
Right.
You can't be present if you're savoring some fantasy.
Right, exactly, right. Because then you're always trying to project that fantasy.
Well, you're trying to control everything.
In control, yeah.
You got to control everything, and then you're just pissed off because your kids won't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways. All right, I got to get going.
Okay.
This is good. Oh, my God.